Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, friends, our time starts now, and we're going to be talking about driving green transport in tourism. That's a very important aspect. You just heard sustainability, and this is a major part of the whole thing. And the best way to understand about transportation, something which will give you a brief idea, would be I would share the figures given by UNWTO, and UNWTO says that the emission levels created by the transport all over the globe is 5%. Transportation contributes 5%, while tourism, on the other hand, also contributes 5%. So it's not 100% transportation doesn't get into tourism. So that's something which we all have to be keeping in mind. The important thing is that everybody talks about green, going green, they talk about sustainability, they talk about different aspects, but it becomes too technical. A lot of time, people forget what it means for the common man, what it means for a traveler. How does it actually, what do they do, and how can they preserve it? Because I think there's a lot of expectations that we should all do sustainability, all should go green, the hotels, the airlines. But what about the traveler? Where does he stand? How does he do it? And what's going to happen to him? So that's something which we're going to discuss today. And there's something, and the best thing over there is we have two good panelists over here. One is Jean. He's the group director for Eurocar Mobility Group. Jean, I got your name correct. I hope that. And Daniela Rosado, who's the director for Spain Tourism Office over here. Welcome, Daniel. It's such a pleasure to have you here. So rather than Mike giving you more of topics, I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to start with Daniel. Tell us something. What does green transport and tourism mean for a traveler? Let's not get technical. From a tourist who's coming to you into Spain and other places, what does it mean for him? How do you see that going forward?
Thank you so much, Sanjit. It's good to be back at ATM one more year, so we are enjoying here. Speaking about sustainability, everyone speaks about sustainability. That's a word that everyone has in the mouth. Sustainability is in the core of the strategies, in the plans that all the companies in all the industries and across all the economic sectors. So it's something important. But for tourism, it's even more important because tourism represents 10% of the GDP worldwide. So it has a major impact because it's a very big industry. So if we go sustainable in that industry, we are doing very good for the future of this sustainability. So it's something that, especially in tourism, because of the essence of this economic activity, which is when you have leisure travelers, they are more freely to choose the travel they want, and in that travel that they are choosing, they are putting their beliefs and their values. So if they want to go green, they are more free to go green than in other industries where the competition is more tight, so it's more difficult. So in the essence of tourism, we have a bit more for a space in order to become more sustainability. But we need to make sure that for tourism, sustainability is not just something more to market, not to use as a marketing tool. We need to really be sustainable because it's our destination. It's what we are going to live now and for the future. So we really need to be, and then we need to communicate. But we are seeing a lot of people communicating about sustainability and not being sustainable. So we really need to do, and then go. For Spain tourism, we are talking about sustainability since long way back. We have plans in sustainability which makes the framework of what we do in tourism, how we promote our destinations and how we manage our destination. And we have two plans, which are, one is the sustainability plan for 2020-30 in tourism, which is the framework where we work. And talking about transport in tourism, we have also another 2030 plan, which is the mobility, which is a secure, connected, and a sustainable mobility.
Right. Daniel, I understand that, but I'll come back to it later because I think there's something which we need to look at. You're expecting the tourist to go green and look into this thing, but there's an education part of tourists to understand that. Anyway, I'll come to that question a little later. Let me go to John. A lot of things happen. I want you to also look into your crystal because when you talk about sustainability, going green, the first thing We talk about cars because everybody's looking into it. So I think the expectations of going electric or whatever it is a lot more when it comes to cars. So what are your thoughts on it, your initial thoughts before I go to the other questions? Go ahead, over to you.
First of all, I think that there is a big gap between the expectation, between the dream, between what we would like to achieve and the reality. We were talking a few years ago about autonomous cars, about flying cars, about a lot of things that we don't see, and probably we will not even see. We are looking at a lot of surveys, studies, saying that people are willing to change their habits, to give up their cars, to go for shared mobilities. And when we believe all those trends, all those surveys, we are thinking, wow, it's great. We are going the right direction. But the reality is different. If it would have been true, all those surveys, my turnover will be 10 times what is it today. So we are facing some challenges. It's clear that we see that we are going to the electrification road, and there is no choice. It is driven by regulation, mainly in Europe. Um, but it's not because regulation decided that we have to go to electric cars that it's easy to go to electric cars. And it's not easy for an operator for us for plenty of different reasons. The first one, the supply. First of all, it's not easy to buy an electric cars today. There is not enough supply. The second one is, of course, the infrastructure. We are lacking some poles, some charging points. And in terms of operation, when you are a car rental, it's a nightmare in the sense that on airports, we are doing a lot of business, and we have plenty of people landing in the morning and plenty of other people taking the same cars early in the afternoon, and we cannot recharge them in 2 or 3 hours. You cannot recharge 2,000 cars where airports are not occupied. And this is really a problem of communication and interaction between the public and the private sector. Maybe we will come back to that.
Well, you've made a good point, but I'll come back to you again because costing makes a big difference for a traveler. You're talking about a tourist over here, so I'll come back to you a little later on that. I'm really going to go to Daniel. Let's look at something which you did mention about expecting a lot of things from the tourist point of view. Now, in tourism today, if I can say, is seeing is believing, right? And tourists who actually, how do you see your final customer really want to understand that? And what's your visual impact? Suppose if you say Spain is green and some other country is not green, would I come to Spain? I'm sorry, that's what it's all about, tourism. So I really want to understand that from you.
Yes. So actually, when we talk about destinations, we don't say this destination is sustainable, that destination is not sustainable. What we try to make understand the people is we are managing the destination in a sustainable way. So Spain is as a destination that is managed in a sustainable way, and that can be seen by the tourist. Sustainability is not only environmental, which is a big part of it, but we also have social implications, economical implications, and so forth. So when someone comes to Spain, they can see that, for example, we take care of our land. 1/3 of Spain is protected land. That is about the size of the whole of Greece. So we have that part of the land in Spain protected, which is restricted for certain constructions, and they have certain rules in order to protect the destination and the environment that we have. 1/8 of the sea that is part of Spain is protected. So we are number one in UNESCO biosphere reserves, number one in Red Natura 2000 in Europe. So we are one of the most biodiversity countries, with more biodiversity countries in Europe. So we are trying to protect that. And when you come, you see, this is a national park, you cannot do this and that. So we have so many things that you can see. We are trying to take tourists to those other places rather than only being in the city. So we try to spread across the whole of the country so that in a social way and in an economical way, and also to not get saturated so much the big cities. So that's also part of our strategy to be more sustainable. Talking about cities, we have, in all of them, we have plenty of plans for making it more walkable. We are trying to do more pedestrian cities. So we are trying to reduce the cars. To make that, we are changing the scale and the infrastructure in the city. Less roads, more pavement for people to work. We are trying to give the city back to the people. So we are having, of course, cars in the city, but it's more restricted. And of course, we are trying to implement and to focus on to more sharing cars and other ways of making the city more lively. We see that new generations are more open to these kind of ideas, and this is not something that is going to happen in one overnight. No, it's going to take some time, but slowly, when tourists come to Spain, they see that it's green in not only environmental, which it is, but in all of the aspects. Slowly, we will become more sustainable as all of the industries. So this is something that needs some time, and it's happening, but it needs more time to develop.
Oh, you said it very well, but my basic question remains over here is, when a tourist, when a person comes as a tourist, he's very conscious about all this in his own home country. Like, frankly speaking, back home country, I'll be very sustainable, I'll be green. But when it comes as a tourist, does he do all that? Is he proactive that way? What's your...
So we are trying to attract the more sustainable tourist. So we market what we are doing in tourism as a destination, or how we manage. So when you go to a hotel, we are trying. I mean, now we have a plan. We are investing 3.4 thousand millions in getting the sector up to speed. So that means digitalization and sustainability. We are changing. I mean, we are doing changes in all the infrastructure. For example, in the hotels, we are changing the windows in order to be more sustainable, reduce the energy. There are a lot of schemes about recycling. Whenever you go to a restaurant or to a hotel, you can see, because they explain, they want to transmit what they are doing. So when tourists come, they are able to see that in all the small steps that they do in the destination, there's a sustainability factor, because it is explained. And all the companies in all the value chain of tourism are making those changes because it's imposed by the government, but the private sector is making those changes, and it is something that we are telling the people that visit us, because we know that, I mean, there's a study that says that 87% of the travelers are looking forward, are looking into sustainability factors when they are choosing the destination. So that means that we want to attract those tourists. So when they are in the destination and before coming, through different elements in marketing, we try to tell them that this is a green destination.
Okay, Jean, I want to come to you, because whatever he said now is something you need to ratify. With easier said than done. But my point over here would be, because the electric cars have now become the norm. Everybody looks at electric car back home, they want to drive it and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to, as a traveler, would they come to you and would they ask for electric cars and all that? And then would that be more expensive, or would that be more reasonable? That's another part. And sorry, I'm adding one more thing. Do you see a change in habits among the people when it comes to sustainability? What's the real pulse of the people? We'd like to hear from you.
In fact, I think that there are a lot of different things. When it is B2B, I mean, through the procurement decided by your company, there are some direction given and you have to follow them. When we are talking about individual tourism, leisure, it's slightly different. A lot of people are saying, yes, I want to travel in a sustainable manner. However, we realize that the number of bookings for electric cars for non-resident passengers or drivers is very low, because the reality is that it is not that simple to rent an electric car. To rent it, yes, but to recharge it, it is not that simple, especially when you are not used to it and when you go to a different country with a different language. First of all, you have to locate all the charging poles. Quite easy, because all the GPS of the cars will give that to you. But then you arrive to the charging station, and the natural way to do it is to pick up your credit card and try to insert it. But you cannot. To recharge an electric car, you have to download a specific app, and then through the app you put your credit card, and then you can charge the car. Then you go to the next, you do your 300 kilometers, and you go to the net charging poles. So you are super happy. I have the application. Bad luck. It's another operator, and it is not working. So you have to do the same again and again. So what we have to do is to ensure that there is much more exchanges in terms of data, and as the telephone industry did, much more roaming between the different countries, because we have to make it simple for the customers. The customer, they should be in confidence when renting an electric car, and they should be in the position to say, okay, I have one app, and it's enough. I can go wherever I want. I will have the solution. It will be easy. And for us, it is not that simple to explain to the customer that it is easy when the reality is slightly different. And this is why, to come back to your question, in terms of usage, we see huge differences in terms of EV adoption. If you are within the same country or the same region, because you are familiar with it, you are confident, and when we are talking about inbound tourism.
That's interesting, but you said when it comes to corporate people, they use electric, they have got specific instructions. But for the leisure, it's a different thing. And especially if you're going from one destination, for example, let's take Europe. You're doing France, you may go down to Holland, you can go down to Spain. So obviously then I can't use an electric car, correct?
Most likely they will not request an electric cars because they are afraid to do so, even if they want. And this is a shame, because we are trying to push that. We are trying to give as much as information as possible, but you cannot fight against the fear, the natural fear of people that are going somewhere that they don't know. Of course, you will have a very small portion of people that are convinced and they want to do it, so they will do it. And when we are back talking about B2C, we are doing the effort in the sense that we price the electric cars at the same price of the ICE car. So we are doing the effort because for us the cost is not the same, just to make sure it is attractive. And despite that, we are not seeing a boom in EV bookings.
Okay, this brings me to another thing. There's something called, which everybody uses, hybrid cars, electric and nothing goes with it. Now, I want you to talk about that and tell me, what are your challenges with electric cars? Because a lot of people do say it's more expensive at times to charge it and stuff like that. So I really want to understand, is that really going green?
This is what I told you. I mean, we are doing the effort in the sense that we price the EV at the price of the normal car. But the PHEV or the hybrid plug-in cars is, in my opinion, a good solution on transition, in the sense that it's the opportunity to educate people with electric cars without the fear of not being in the position to recharge the car. Saying that, I know that plenty of organizations are blaming the PHEV, because it's true that depending on the usage of the car, the impact could be good or could be bad. And my point is that everything should be looked at the usage level, and depending on the usage you have, you need a different type of cars. And we have to admit that today, sometimes the EV is not necessarily the best one, and the PHEV obviously is not necessarily the best one. So it depends on the usage, and we can see it within our car sharing activities, where we have mainly, if not only, EVs, because it's people picking up the car in the city, doing some trips within the city, returning to the same station base. And for that, and for less than 200 kilometers away, EVs are perfect. But if you want to cross Europe with an EV, it is today still a challenge.
Okay, so but what's the business like? Are you seeing the leisure traffic I'm talking about over here? Are they really going for these cars and everything, or is only the corporates who are using this? Which way is your graph going?
Sorry, I missed the point.
Okay. Which way is your graph going? Are there leisure travelers taking more of these vehicles, or is it only the corporates who are doing this?
No. Again, it depends. It depends on different things. First of all, the level of information we are able to provide to them in advance, because we have to bring confidence to those customers. And then it depends also of the usage they have. I mean, if they fly to Malaga and they stay in Malaga and are just driving around Malaga, EV is perfect. But again, the difficulty is that when you start to go and make long distance in a country that is not your own country with a different language, this is where we're starting to have some issues and some fear from the customer. And this is where the work from our side is extremely difficult because, as I explained earlier, we would like it to be much more simple than it is today, and it's going to improve. But today is not the reality, and what we did to make sure that we are attracting as much as consumer possible is to price, as I said, exactly the same the EV and non-EV equivalent cars, because when we are talking about B2C, price is also part of the decision. So if we are not playing the game, if we are not making the effort, of course, we will not attract sufficient people to EV cars.
Okay, I'll come back to you on this. Daniel, I want to really come on to you over here. Uh, Coming back to the same question about convincing the tourists to come to your destination and look at other options where you can go green. For example, I have some figures which the European Cyclist I think Federation came out that nowadays 44 billion money is being raised in Europe just on cycling tours. That's the kind of figures we're talking about. So that's a lot of money which you look at. So this is a new thing which I'm sure wasn't there earlier. But what are the other things which you're looking at for a tourist to do when it comes to going green? Are you looking at these ideas or something else? You did mention that you're going to make sure your cities are there, but still, what else are you doing on these things?
So, for example, talking about transportation, I mean, cycling is something that we are seeing. It's like a new trend, no? Especially after COVID, people want to go to outside the cities. They want to go to nature, and they go with the bike. Even in the cities in Spain, like because that's more used. I mean, it's more normal in the northern part of Europe or in the central Europe, which is more plain. They are more used to cycling, no? In Spain, which is a little bit more, has a little bit of mountainside and all that, we did not have that before, but now we are encouraging everyone to use the bike, even in big cities and small cities. So they are constructing all these lane bikes. So we are trying to increase the walking around the city and going in bike. Actually, it is in 10 years' time, I think in 2030, it's expected that cars fall in big cities by a 10%. So that means that everyone is using less and less the car, which is something that we are aware and we are also implementing and trying to force by redesigning the cities. But there are other ways of transport. For example, when we go from city to city, we are trying to take the people to use the train. Trains are very efficient and very sustainable. In Spain, we have the biggest network in Europe of trains. Actually, it's the second biggest network of train after China. So we have a lot of train network. And those trains, especially Renfe, which is the biggest operator, they all are fueled by, in 80% by renewable energy, and they are electrified, so they use electricity from renewable sources. So we are trying to push people to use the train, which is much more efficient. And also it's very easy to use because you travel from the heart of the city to the heart of the city instead of going to an airport that you have to go outside the city, wait for the plane. So it's even more convenient. And also we can talk about in the cities, there are other ways of, other modes of transportation. For example, the ports. The ports in Spain, we are doing a huge amount of effort in order to make them greener. For example, the port of Barcelona, in 2026, which is 3 years' time, it will be fully using renewable energy. So that's very good. By 2030, by 2050, it will be carbon neutral. So we are making those kind of efforts in order to make the destination and the transport around the destination as green as possible.
Okay, Daniel, I understand that. But now, what Jean Nassau mentioned, the biggest challenge would be for a tourist if he takes an electric car and goes away. So you need to provide him different spots where he can actually charge his car and all that. So are you doing something on that effort? Are you trying to say that this area is meant for, or how are you? How as a country are you looking at it?
So, I mean, as I mentioned before, this is not something that is going to happen overnight. No? So it needs planification, it needs time in order to develop. The more and more we plan and the more and more we have, more and more people will use the electric car. For example, I was thinking of buying a car. So electrical was a choice that I thought of. But if I'm planning to do long trips, I think that we still need 1 or 2 more years. But we are working on that. For example, Repsol, which is one of the biggest gas stations company in Spain, they have now a plan to put in all the gas stations electrical points to charge the car. They have the biggest network of gas stations. So wherever you are going, you will be able to charge your electric car. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's a plan that they will, I think they have put a time frame of 2 years. But in that time, you will be more, you will be more confident that you can travel from one city in the north of Spain to the south of Spain with your electrical car. So we are making small steps, and all of the plans that we are doing now, they all come with the sustainability at the core of the decisions. So I think that slowly, we are reaching there.
Okay, let's hope, because the car is going to be there for at least what, 12 hours for charging. So I'm hoping that works well.
No, well, there are some systems, no, Jean. I don't know if you know that, but there are some like faster like batteries, no, that you can be like 2 hours, and with that you get like a lot, like 60% or something like that of the battery. So things like that. When the technology also advances, so for 2030, I'm very positive that things are going to be more.
Let me keep my fingers crossed on it, because just to share some facts, in 2016, there were only about 2 million electric cars. The last figure which I had was till 2020. I'm sorry, I don't have after that. There are 10 million. So that's a large number we're talking about, kind of situation. So that's something which you need to look at. Okay, Ron, I'm coming to you. It's very well said what you just mentioned, but is actually convincing the tourists to really use efficient car. But more importantly, you have something which is that MAAS, mass support system. Can you throw some light on that and tell us how is the study there now and how is it going on today?
Yeah, mass mobility as a service. It was the great idea, and it is a great idea, to propose within one simple apps all the mobility options in order to provide a credible alternative to the car ownership. We tried, not Europe Car Mobility Group, but a lot of companies tried to implement mass mobility as a service in different cities. Unfortunately, so far, we don't see a huge impact, or we don't have a big real example. So Helsinki has been a pioneer in that area, and in Helsinki it has been deployed. There are a lot of tests everywhere, but there are still small tests, and there is not a city with a real big mass offer for different reasons. The first one is the lack of coordination and collaboration between the public transport authorities and the private sector in shared mobility. The second one is technical, is related to the data access and to the exchange of data that is limited in innovation. And the third one is definitely the ticketing part, because if you go from home to the point B and the application is proposing you to take a scooter, to walk, then to take a scooter, then the tube, and maybe at destination a shared car, for the application to bring you the right price depending on your specificity. I mean, if you already have a subscription with the travel authority, if you already have a subscription with one of the shared mobility, it's extremely complex, and the ticketing part is definitely the bottleneck. So there was that, or there's still that idea. At the same time, the reality is that the comfort to take your own car from home, to go to your office or wherever you want to go, and select the radio you want, have the space you need, and the comfort you want, and to say that we will be able to propose the same quality of travel in a multimodal mode is indeed a challenge, and the reality is not yet there. So yes, as I said earlier, it's easy to convince people that are already convinced, but normal people, it's much harder and it will take time. It could be driven by either regulation, because more and more in cities now, you have some restriction regarding the car. So they cannot enter the city or downtown of the city, or there are some restriction because only EVs will be able to drive in. And this is where, by the way, Europe Car Mobility is playing a role, because most of the time I am asked, why are you talking in a sustainable event, whereas car is not sustainable? I said, yeah, car is not sustainable, but the usage of the car can be, and everything depends of the usage. And what we are doing is car sharing. Car rental is just the sharing of the car for a longer period, but every single study is saying that a shared car is replacing 6 to 9 cars. So imagine what we could do within cities if there were one car out of 6 only there. I mean, the space we are gaining in terms of parking slot to do something else. And the gain in terms of congestion and CO2 will be just amazing.
All right, thank you. I think we need to now wrap up, but I want to ask you, Jean, something with your hand on your heart. In the long term, you think the tourist will use electric cars with all the challenges of parking and all that? Forget the corporate world, forget what we do in our own cities. But a tourist who's coming from a different land, he has no commitment kind of situation. You think he will go for the cheaper version or and something different? What's it going to be like in the future? Put your thinking cap on. Let's hear.
The price. Most of the decision is driven by the price. So in fact, the question is how to make sure that the sustainable offer is priced at the equivalent level of a different one. So if we want to attract the consumer, we have to provide the right offer. And in fact, there is a very small proportion of customers that are already convinced on those ones, they will do it. But the issue is to convince the remaining of them, and the remaining part of them is bigger. So this is our job, I mean, as destination, as hoteliers, our shared mobility players, our airlines. The session before was about a green transportation with planes and the e-fuels and things like that. So the solution is, will have to come from us, and we cannot just rely on the customer to change his behavior.
All right, thank you.
Sanjit, can I add something there? So, from a public point of view, because I want to put that point now in the discussion, I believe that the public part is doing two things. One is trying to convince the citizenship and all the people coming that green and electrical is better, but they have also another tool, which is coercion, right? So I think that at certain point, in certain destinations, they will say, okay, from here on, has to be electric. So the choice for more contaminant cars may come to an end.
Okay, fair enough. Now, coming to you, I'm not letting you go away like that. Whatever said and done, sustainability, going green, tourism is an important aspect because the traveler comes to, he's traveling across. I'm not going to the aviation part, what's happening there, that's a different story. But as a destination, what is it that will really help you promote, that will get you attract people to your destination when it talks about going green? What is it that you think the tourists will say, okay, I want to do that?
In fact, I believe that the B2B, the business travel will drive the change, because companies are under pressure, are putting pressure on their travelers, and destination hoteliers, us, we have to adapt. So the market will change because it is pushed by the business travelers, and it will benefit the leisure travelers. But you can argue that, Daniel.
No, but I want to ask about the travelers part of it. The leisure travelers, how do you convince them? What are they going to be?
I think that leisure travelers are already convinced. They are seeing the effects of climate change, so they are becoming more aware of the challenges that every one of us faces in the decisions we make, because we can see the effects, wildfires, hot waves, cold waves. a lot of rain at the same time, which trashes which is not good for the city or the land. So people are becoming more aware by themselves, and also younger generations, we are seeing that the sustainability factor is at the core of the decision. So that's on the one side, they are becoming more. And then on our side, we need to implement those measures and market them, transmit them, communicate them properly so that people really know that this is a sustainable destination. And if you want to be faithful to your beliefs, this is the place where you can really enjoy.
The change you think, sorry, I need to end now. The change you think will come from the intelligence of the traveler, or does the tourism board have a role to play into it? How are you going to do that?
We will encourage that, but we think that we will, call to action to those beliefs that they are more and more aware of. So we will help them to make those decisions.
So your future is going to be all about how green you are, and hope for them to come for that, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, both of you. I'm sorry I have no time. I'm really out of time for any questions, but please catch hold of my panelists over here and ask them whatever you want to ask them. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. You guys have been a great audience over here. Pleasure. Thank you, both of you. Thanks a lot.